Welcome to Ordinary Joe's Extraordinary Stories, a podcast that shines a light on ordinary people and their extraordinary stories. From small towns to big cities, we're sharing the real, raw, and inspiring moments that connect us all. Because every voice matters, every story counts. This is Ordinary Joe's Extraordinary Stories. What's happening, Joes? Welcome back to another episode. Today we have another special guest, as always. Thank you guys for joining us, and please help me welcome Armando Enriquez Jr., otherwise known as Gummy Bear. And I put an S on that and pluralize it, so this is Gummy Bears. This is a cousin from out of town. This is actually an unplanned episode, which is one of my favorites because, you know, it's spur of the moment. But he actually happened to be in town, so we decided to do a quick podcast. So thanks for coming to the studio, man.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. So let's get started. I know you through marriage. That's about it. We met after your first visit out here when Sarah and I were actually first together before we even got married. But tell me about life prior to me. Tell me about coming up in the East Coast, and you know, how did that all come about? Did you always live there, or had you ever grown up here at all, or?
Well, I actually lived in 9 states, I think now. Um, my dad was military, so every 3 years we'd go somewhere else. I started in Hawaii. I ended up went to Maryland, went to Colorado, went back
Damn.
to Hawaii. Then we went to Oklahoma, and then we went to Augusta, Georgia, where my dad retired. Kind of everything kind of ended up over there. So at the end of the day, I did kind of end up in the East Coast. I did go to Florida for a couple of years, came back to Augusta, and then right now I reside in Columbia, South Carolina. And I think in about a couple of years, I'm going to probably end up back in Augusta as well. So um, a lot of moving around to the point where I've never even really had a childhood friends that like I've known all my life. It's more like I've had great friends throughout my life.
So no, I don't know, I guess stability, or would you say that, or would you say that you had stability, just no permanent fixtures in your life?
I mean, I guess the stability was more in the sense of temporary stability. Every time I've moved, it's always been a new and exciting chapter, I guess, if you will, in my life. I like new faces. I like meeting new people. I like seeing new scenery.
For sure.
Not all of it is always going to be positively impactful on your life, um, but it's still awesome because it's just different and doing something different. And I guess that's that whole military um, upbringing, having every 3 years, brand new, something different, different
Sure.
scenery, friends, that kind of thing. And I like it. I actually um, really like change. I like, even if I'm liking or loving what I'm doing or where I'm at, I am not scared to stop and go, or be willing to stop and go and change it abruptly, regardless of if it ends up being better or for worse.
That's great, man, because most people are terrified of change. You know, everybody gets comfortable in their lifestyle and what they're used to, and even when it turns out things are getting worse, they just stick it out. So having that sort of nomad um, attitude is really cool, and I kind of admire that. It's really cool.
Well, that also is how I ended up with over 50 jobs. Uh, maybe three of them I might have got let go. About 4 or 5 of them I might have showed up and realized this isn't for me within a couple weeks or within even a couple days. For the most part, though, of my jobs, I've always gotten a raise within 6 months. And after about a year, I found something else, but I always had 2 jobs, if not three, at one time. Um, Ever since actually, even when I was in high school, I ended up a couple times having 2 jobs, just a couple part-time jobs to fill in the gaps. Um, but I always wanted to learn something new, even with that. I liked. I never got. I got stuck in the restaurant industry for 22 years, but I liked having a second job where I branched out and did something different.
Sure.
Um, and back in the day, I said back in the day, but like 20 years ago and more, it was so much easier to me to get a job because I have a personality that I love. I don't mind meeting people, so I'm always open. when I was younger, I was more, shy and, that kind of thing. Got to break your shell. I don't know exactly when that changed, but when it did, I never looked back. So I'd be the first one to speak up, the first one to get on the dance floor, the first one to, I give people a chance because I will, let them get a chance into whatever we're doing. But at the end of the day, sometimes, I end up being the first one to take the initiative, and
It's another really admirable quality.
yeah, sometimes it gets you in trouble. It isn't the smartest move to be the first one to do it, but at the same time, that just comes with the territory of well,
Well, I call that leadership, not following. So that's
yeah.
kind of a beneficial quality to have overall. Um, would you say that you had going to your military background? Would you say that you had like a normal upbringing as far as military is concerned, and did that affect how your life played out? Did you ever have any intent on military yourself, or anything like that, or?
Well, it's kind of funny. My dad, he joined at a young age. I don't know, 18, 19, 20. He was right there. Well, yeah, because he had me when he was like 21 or something. But I did not want to do anything like that. Not that the benefits and everything didn't speak volumes to me because it was like, I lived that life, so it was understandable, why people would, especially with a family in mind and that kind of setting, and being a nomadic kind of spirit to be able to travel. That did cross my mind, um, but I didn't want my path laid out for me in such detail
Sure.
where it says 10 years is this, 20 years is that. I just didn't, I never cared for that. I never liked a 9 to 5. I didn't want a Monday through Friday, I'm always off Saturday, Sunday. I never wanted, I just like change. I like different. I like crazy. Um, I like stability, but at the same time, I like controlled chaos too. It's like, I
Mhm.
just like random sometimes, different things happening. Um, and then, so that's why the military, and I'll be, the military. It's not like it was going to be a straight and narrow. This is, you still have to work. You still have to, strive. You still are gonna,
Of course.
deal with your own. But I just felt like that was already the groundwork was laid out, and I didn't really want that. I did go when I was 27, I think. At that point in my life, I kind of had a moment in my life where I was like, I don't, I'm not getting where I want to go because when you start at entry level, especially when you're going through jobs, every 6 months to a year, in and out of jobs and whatnot, or 2 or 3, it just depends, how many years or whatnot. But when you keep starting over, it is it goes against you actually having creating a foundation of that stability, financially, even with the housing and everything and whatnot. I'm always renting, uh, so um, it. I just. When I was 27, I decided I just said, you know what, let me go see what the military is about. Maybe this that point in my life where I matured enough and I could, that kind of thing. So I wanted to join the Marines, and when I went, they had age limit, and I did not. I just exceeded
Oh wow.
it by like months. So I was like, okay, fine, let's go to the Army. Now, at the time, I wasn't planning on being walked around with, my dad or anybody. I was gonna go by myself, but my dad said, hey, let me jump in, and him being 20 years, all that with his military background, I didn't mind him um, coming with me. But when we went to the Army recruiter, he talked to me like I was in my late 20s with my daddy sitting by my side. So, after the interaction, I realized, yeah, I'm not going backwards again. I've already gotten past the point of um, being able to sit there and take people talking down to me, and not saying that that's just how the military runs, but that whole you listen, you listen, you listen. I was past that point in my life. It was I'm too much of a debater, too much of open. I love both sides of the street because I like to. Everybody has their own opinion. But at the end of the day, and it doesn't mean that they're right, and it doesn't mean that they're wrong.
Sure.
But I love hearing both sides because it opens your mind up to, the whys and the hows, and it helps us as humans and as people grow um, in any capacity, socially, whatever. It's that it helps you grow when you're actually able to open your mind up to what the other side is saying or thinking, um, and seeing where they're coming from. and then that just helps you realize and have a little bit better of an understanding and a respect for what they have to say.
Be cool if more people had that kind of an attitude, but unfortunately, that's not the society we live in. But what are you gonna do? Um, I wanted to ask you before I forget. I'm gonna backtrack here. Where did Gummy Bear come from? How did that come about?
I don't honestly know. I think that came from my nanny. Um,
That's funny.
I'm pretty sure it's from my nanny, but I don't know 100%. But I had the nickname Gummy Bear, and my brother had the nickname Gumby from the character Gumby and
Yeah, yeah.
all that. And I really don't know where they came from. Like, I think
Interesting.
it just happened when I was younger, and my nan, I believe, and I could even be wrong that it wasn't nanny, but I'm pretty sure it was her that came up with that.
And it kind of just stuck.
Yeah, it's stuck.
There's so many people in the family that refer to you as Gummy Bear, and I'm like, that's an interesting name. Like I thought maybe you were obsessed with gummy bears or something.
No, I mean, actually, I think at the point where I finally let it go and I stopped being embarrassed about being called Gummy Bear, because it just sounds too squishy of a name for someone as solidly built as
Squishy.
I am. You know what I mean? But no, she came out to Georgia to see me play. Or I think they came out to visit, and I was playing in the middle school band, and we had a concert in the gym, and I had my own drum part and whatnot, and we're all silent, ready to get started, and all you hear is "Gummy Bear." I was like, but after that moment, I think that and that part of that embarrassment or whatever, if you will, of her kind of out in public, or I just let after that I let it go, and whenever anybody calls me that, I just know that that is part of my upbringing, and that is
That's
a
cool.
nickname that a lot of people have for me. So
And okay, what kind of what instrument did you play in the band? Just curious.
I play all percussion,
Oh,
and
okay, cool.
I sing as well. I was started off in boys choirs and whatnot when I was
No
younger.
kidding.
So when it comes to music, um, a lot of it has always been instilled in my life. Always. Um,
Wow, is that just a drive that you had, like something you were craving yourself, or did that come from somewhere? Did somebody like influence you towards that?
my mom, she sang
Oh, okay.
a lot of Madonna, Janet Jackson, all the good stuff, the Mariah
80s
Careys, that
divas.
those divas. But she was a good singer,
Wow,
and
interesting.
she wanted to be a musician and a singer when she was younger. And I think that's a drive that everybody has at some point in their life of being some sort of artists in a sense, regardless of if it's using different mediums in that kind of sense, or actually the artwork in a musical way or whatever. I think a lot of people like that, having that avenue, even if they don't end up being able to utilize it as any sort of financial stability, if
No,
you
I
will.
had, I
But
get that.
music was it's always been part of my life, even to this day. I actually bought a marimba a few years ago, finally, because I play four mallet marimba. Played four mallet vibraphone when I was in college. Played a lot of jazz.
Wow.
Um, I did play all percussion. I was in the drum line and whatnot, but I think drums just didn't have a calling for me like the auxiliary percussion did, which would be the xylophone, vibraphone,
That's
um,
crazy.
just because the musicality with it. And
Sure.
when I went to college, when I went to Augusta State University, when it was called that back then, it I didn't realize you could play instruments with more than one mallet in your hand. And once I realized I could make chords and I can do all this, oh
Oh,
my
that's
goodness,
interesting.
it opened up the more floodgates for me, to the point where honestly, I think if I had, uh, I could have Justin Biebered it easy. Like, if I really, really wanted it, and later in life I realized I didn't really, really, really want it. I didn't really want to be famous with it. I loved that I had gotten to play with musicians. I actually played with like James Brown's drummer, Eric Hargrove. He came out to Augusta State and did some shops, and we did a couple concerts together. Even played with him um, at a venue. Um, I just got to meet a lot of interesting people and musicians in my life, and I could have became famous with it, but I backed down from it.
What was the impetus for that?
Well, a couple things. Number one, I wanted true love in my life. Not that you couldn't find true love as a famous whatever, but uh, I realized that like mm, it's easier to tell when somebody actually you can read people easier when there isn't something so
Driving them.
big, yeah, or
No,
something
I
so
get
big at
it.
stake like money involved. Um, Heck, for I would quit smoking cigarettes whenever I'd meet somebody that didn't smoke, because I didn't date smokers, even though I smoked.
That's
And
interesting.
the reason why though was because that means that they actually loved me for me. So that byproduct, that little habit that I'd have, yeah, I just kick it.
You've
Um,
got such a unique outlook on everything. It's crazy. I love it.
yeah, I challenge everyone, even though they don't know. I'm challenging them a lot of times. Like for instance, if there's an atheist, I'm a Christian. If you're a Christian, I'm an atheist. It's I like debate, and not in a negative way or a fight kind of argumentative. You have to be able to open up your mind when you talk to people in this life and in this world, because there's so much possibilities and impossibilities that exist, that you should never keep yourself constrained to just one form of idealism, one form of this is how it is, this is how it's supposed to be, and this is it.
Wow.
It's like, no, it's not. You don't know. No one does. So chill out.
That's wild, dude. That's really cool.
Yeah.
I like that. Um, it's really interesting about your your musical side. I'm sorry, I had no clue that you had any music background at all, and here you are, damn near borderline famous. That's from music. That's really cool. I've been playing guitar and I played in a mariachi for
Yeah.
years and years and years, so I get the music aspect side of it. And yeah, when I started, I had that same attitude. Yeah, I'm gonna be in a band and I'm gonna be a big punk star and that kind of stuff. And
I think what got me though was I was playing four mallet vibes on the vibraphone in jazz, and it's like the sounds you hear in elevators when you hear elevator
yeah,
music that's
yeah,
been converted into this soft steel drum kind of
sure.
sound. Um, and I wasn't amazing, but people thought I was just because I held two mallets in my hand and I had an instrument they never saw or they hadn't seen in a while or whatever. And the sound was very beautiful.
Yeah.
So, I'd go downtown. I was 19, 20, 21, and I'd play jazz with a couple different groups and whatnot. And, everybody would come over to me like, hey, you killed it, and I'd be like, no, those were easy arpeggios in the chord. Like, hey, that was nothing.
Wow.
Like,
So you know the whole music theory and everything.
well, for me, if you have an instrument, and you're able to play, basically what I was taught was if you're able to play on that instrument what you could sing and vocalize right at this moment, then you're in touch and in tune with your musical instrument, and then you're able to say what you want to say. Um, you know, there was one night. So I got a lot of cop stories. I'm gonna lie, but there was
Well, I want to hear them.
so there was one night. I was 21. I finally was 21. And so when I get pulled over, you drinking? I can say yeah with conviction now. I'm not even worried about it. So that day, I had just gotten a Jeep Grand Cherokee Laredo a couple days ago, and I never believed in putting a little tag applied for in the back of the window. It's I mean, anybody could write that on the back of the window
Sure.
and then put another month and just keep adding to it. So I was like, whatever. I took a chance, and I got pulled over three times that day.
Wow.
The first time I got pulled over, um, the guy says, you don't have your tag thing. And I said, yeah, I just bought the truck or the SUV, and here's my registration. And he said, okay, and he let me go. The second time, I left my wallet at home, and I'm in Augusta, Georgia, and I'm driving to Augusta State University to go do more music stuff and practice and do whatever I was doing. I think I was on lunch break, or I took a lunch. And as I'm driving, I got pulled over again, which is fine, but I didn't have my license with me. And then as he's approaching the car, I had merengue and tango music playing at the time, and I was thinking, oh man, he might hope he don't think I'm like illegal or something. Like, but he pulled me over. We talked. He did an insurance run or whatnot. And he figured out, okay, cool, you're good to go. So that's my second time. My third time though was like 2 in the morning. Um, that night, Augusta State allowed me to take the vibes because it was theirs. They allowed me to take some instruments and borrow. I was one of the ones that was okay to have 24 access to the building.
Oh
Um,
wow.
I still had to be escorted by public safety and whatnot, but that's the best. That was when I practiced. There was nobody around. I was always a late night owl, and I could make as much noise as I wanted to. And I could learn, and that was how I memorized stuff really quickly because I just could zone in for 6, 7 hours on just my craft or whatever I was doing.
Sure.
So I grabbed a set of vibes. We were playing downtown at a new bar called 1102. Um, And I wasn't really part of the group. I was more of a sit-in. I was just coming with him and whatnot. A jazz ensemble group that had formed from the college students, and I was just a sit-in, whatnot. But I came by. I played maybe three sets. I didn't, a couple songs. I didn't play nothing major. But just as I got there, my ex-girlfriend, which was really my first true love, that was I'm a love kind of thing. She came, sat down in front of us, between two dudes, and was sitting there, and I was like, okay, this is how we're gonna do this. So I went to the bartender, and I did what I call it a nuclear bomb. Basically, I get a Jaeger bomb, and then I get two more shots of Jaeger on top of that,
Oh shit.
and then I add all that, and it's a nuclear bomb.
Nice.
So I got a nuclear bomb, and I was feeling good. Then I went back in and said, let me get another one, or I didn't really call it that. I just said, let me get another couple shots. Um, and so at the end of the day, I spent like $75 on alcohol. So I don't know exactly what I drank, but I was nice and feeling great. I was tanked. And but I was. So then the last set was a blues riff. I got on there, and I just wailed, and I let out my heart. I let everything I was feeling. I just, here's my ex right there, the one that I thought I'd marry, the one I thought I'd be with, all that
Jeez.
stuff. 21 years old.
Yeah.
So I let it out. Um, everybody clapped like normal. I was used to people coming up to me and being like, "Wow, that was amazing," and I'm like, "No." The cat right next to me that was on that bass was killing it. I could
Yeah.
feel his energy. I was just playing. So I was still getting to know my instrument myself. I'd only been playing four mallet for maybe a year and a half, not even. Um, and the this guy came up to me, and he was like, "Can I shake your hand?" And I was like, "Oh, yeah." And like I said, I get this, every once in a while. I wasn't too worried about it, but he's like, "Man, that was the best, thing I've ever heard." And I really felt you when you were, and I didn't say a word. I didn't sing. I didn't say it. I just all instrument.
That's
He said,
interesting.
I felt like you had lost someone that you loved, and you're fighting
Holy
for that
shit,
back.
really?
And I'm just like, oh, like,
Wow.
dude. And it was amazing because I actually told somebody what I felt without saying a
Through
freaking word.
music.
And
Oh, dude, that's interesting.
so I had a great night. So I put my vibes up. I get on. This is where downtown Augusta. The type of downtown where there's one way that way, and then
Right.
a big median of woodsy and parking, and then the other way is the one way. So I get in the Jeep and I start driving. I get pulled over. Of course, it's silver bullet too. It isn't just a regular cop. It's like a sheriff or something. And of course he's like with another person. So he's a patrol with like somebody recruit. I don't know. There's another person with him. Um, and of course he asked me if I'm drinking. I say yeah. Yeah. I didn't say it like that, but I said yes, sir.
Heck yeah,
Yes, sir.
dude.
I've been drinking, and and he's like, why I pulled you over? And I was like, yes, sir. I've been pulled over twice, so I understand. I didn't put a tag applied for, that kind of thing. He's like, step out the car. And he'd seen the vibes. He knew where I was coming from. He knew what's going on. So he does has me do a sobriety test. You do the hokey pokey, and you just dance around and do straight lines and whatever it was
Sure.
that he had me do, and I passed him. And then the last test that he had was he made it sound extremely tough, but it wasn't. But he basically says, "All right, I have this breathalyzer in my hand, and then as soon as I tell you to go, you're gonna go and blow in it. You're gonna blow, blow, blow. You're not gonna stop until I say stop. When I say stop, you're gonna close your eyes. You're gonna tilt your head at a 45-degree angle, and you're gonna keep your eyes closed. Lift up your foot and count to 30 in your head. 1 to 30 in your head, not out loud. When you're done, you open your eyes. You let your head down, and you say done. He said, "You got all that?" And
Holy
I
shit.
said, "Yes, sir, I got it." So he said, "All right, go." And so I blew in the breathalyzer. And he said, "Stop." Close my eyes. Tilted my head back. And of course, they're looking for Swain. They're looking
Of
for,
course.
can I say? Then they're looking for time, So he's got a stopwatch, and but I'm a drummer, so I'm counting in my head. One,
Yeah, yeah.
2, 3, whatever. And when I'm done, I'm done. So he's standing there with the breathalyzer in his right hand, the wristwatch in his left hand. He's looking at that. He's looking at the other cop. He's looking at that. He's looking at the breathalyzer. He looks back at the clock, and he says, stand there for a moment. So then he walks back there, and the two guys are talking, and I'm just sitting there like, what the hell they want me to do next? Like, are they just coming up with more? Like, at this point, I'm like, come on, man. Like, I'm ready to go. Like, it's starting to kick in even more now. But so he comes back over with the other cop. He says, how'd you do that? I counted from 1 to 2. I was like, what are you talking about? Like, you know what I mean? Like, and he was like, well, judging from your breathalyzer, you should be going to jail right now. But because of you passed the sobriety test, we're gonna let you go. I was
Holy
like, and
shit.
he's like, but you cannot drive. You're gonna have to get somebody to pick you up. And I said, okay, yeah, I appreciate that, I guess. And what did I blow? And he's like, well, you didn't understand me the first time. I said that when I said, okay, I'm sorry. Like that was when he got. So so then they're getting ready to go, and at this point, I'm in the ghetto. We are knee deep right here. You know what I mean? I can even see people. You're looking around at their house. I'm right in front of people's houses, kind of thing. And I'm like, "Are you guys okay with me at least just moving the Jeep across the street to the Baptist church parking lot, just so I know it's safe?" And he said, "Look at me." He said, "If I drive by and your truck is not there when I'm doing my rounds, the next time I see you, you're going to jail."
Oh
I
shit.
said, "Yes, sir, I understand." So he said, "You have a good night. Be safe." And I said, "All right." Now I'm on my phone. I called this girl I knew, and I said, "Hey, what's up, Amber? Yeah, yeah. No, you're good. I'm just making up stuff. All right, all right. I'll call you later. Bye." And then so she goes. They go that way to the and they take a right to that one way, and I go this way, and I go home.
Oh shit.
What the hell? I didn't have time for that. So I went home. About 2 weeks later, my fraternity brother, a little older than me, but he's my little brother in the fraternity. He's going to Afghanistan. Um, and so they want to have a going away, just me, him, and his mom. And we go to the TGI Fridays. And of course, at the time, Fridays was popping. Um, and of course, they're IDing at the door. And of course, there's a cop right there. So he says, "I see ID." And I say, "Cool, yeah, here's my ID." And then the cop all of a sudden looks up and looks right at me and he says, "I should have took you to jail last week."
Oh shit! It was the same cop.
It's the same guy. I didn't register it until
Holy
until he
shit.
said that, and then I recognized him. Like, oh, because it was in the dark when we were.
That's wild, dude.
Yeah, I played a lot jazz downtown, and there was a time where there's moments in your life where you get humbled, and there was a time where I got humbled. Um, I went ahead and it was the same group of guys, but this was earlier. This was before that last that night, um, and they were playing at Soul Train or Soul the Soul Bar. I'm sorry, or the Metro. It was one of the two. But they were playing downtown at a bar out there, and I came to and I brought my vibes. I set everything up, and I was ready to help and play. They skipped out on me for like a good hour and a half. After a while, it's like we're gonna be closing in an hour, and they still haven't called me up.
Oh jeez.
Um, and I knew what it was. You know, the leader guy. We had butted heads here and there, and he was also. I felt like he was holding me back. You know, also he was extremely talented, extremely talented. But I think he could also see. You know, I wasn't, but I'd always get the accolades sometimes when the rest of the band was really doing their thing.
Sure.
So I felt like some kind of way. So I'm sitting there drinking, and then other people ask me, "When are you gonna play?" I don't know. "Hey, how come you're not up there?" "Oh, it's coming." "Hey, how come you're not?" "I don't know. What the hell am I not going up there, man?" So at some point we're playing a song called Impressions. It's just an easy two chords: A minor, D minor, I believe, or A minor, D. But it was they were playing, and I said, "Fuck it." I went up there and I said, I just got to my vibes, and I looked at the bassist, and he's the bassist, the saxophonist, the guy. They're in the middle of playing the thing. I think one was actually soloing,
Oh
um,
jeez.
and they're all kind of looking at me like, "What the hell are you doing?" I said, "I'm playing. I'm playing. I don't care. I'm next." I was like, "I'll take your ride. I just got there." And I didn't. I was off. I was playing A minor when they were on D, and I was backwards the whole.
Oh shit.
Oh, it was horrible. Um, you know, and I didn't give a shit. I just let it out, And so the leader guy, his name was Joe. He said, "Come here." And we had it out outside. He said, "What the fuck are you doing? What are you doing?" So he went in on me, and I fought back at first, but at the same time, I had a disastrous performance. I looked like an idiot, a fool. I went over there and stepped on their toes. I just, it wasn't a good vibe. I had allowed that little bit of fame, and I call it a little bit, but I mean, when everybody's coming at you and saying you're great, you're good, you're awesome, that was amazing, you're amazing. What are you not doing up there? Get out there. Let me see what you got. When you got all the people in your ear, it can lead you to do stupid stuff. And that was when I realized I don't know if I really want to be that famous, because
Oh,
if at
that's
this
super
level,
interesting.
if at this level it's affecting my ego,
Yeah.
and that's not who I am. Oh, fuck that. That's not who
Damn,
I
that's
am.
wild.
So and no, I didn't stop and take a complete break from music. I stepped going and kept going, but the drive to really, I just kind of, I was like, you know what, I don't know if I really want that anymore. Um, so that was kind of how, that was one humbling moment in my life where I kind of took a different direction.
Wow, that's,
You
dude,
know,
that's really cool.
yeah. So
That's a
now I
great
still play
story.
music. I still, it's just, there's so much, in this world that the leaders, if you will, of the world that everything is here to just take all of your attention away. Suck up all your attention. You can't even just sit there and look at birds anymore, kick a can anymore, or just have a moment of awkward silence or a moment of silence anymore. It's almost like everything has to be filled up with something to do, regardless of if it's something in your hands or something in your head, something you're watching or something you're part of. It's always something. And so, in this day and age, it's very hard for me to find time to game like I used to, or play music like I used to, or do anything. And then with the advent of having my child, you know, a lot of your time soaked up with that, which isn't an
Yep.
issue or problem, but it is if you want to try to play music or you want to
Yeah.
you want to game or whatnot. It's just one of those things. So I've learned how to sacrifice and kind of move on. I had my kid when I was 39. Um, so I had a pregnancy scare when I was younger, a couple marriage possibilities, but I had my child when I was a little older than most, and I'm glad I did because I feel like if I was in my 20s, I wouldn't have been ready, and I
Yeah.
would have had my parents taking care of my kid like
Yep.
a lot of parents,
Like, yes, that's a
even grandparents have had to do in
it's
this
no
day and
joke.
age.
No joke.
But they make it so hard for you to be able to branch out and be on your own nowadays. I have always had two jobs. Yes, I've always loved meeting new people. Yes, I love working, but at the same time, I did want it to be where I could work 50 hours and make a good living, and I have to work 70 or 60. Um, you know, but
I think it's really wild and really rare that the outlook you have on your jobs, because you say you worked over 50 jobs, but you say that with like a sense of pride. You don't. Most people are, go into the job market with the ambition to be at this one job forever and never leave, and that looks better on your resume, but you obviously have no trouble getting work, and you're just proud of the fact that you've had so many jobs. And I'm not one to speak at all because I've had probably just as many myself. um, do you ever find, or do you ever feel like maybe one of these jobs is going to be a settle down job like that, or are you just you
well,
want to continue to do that through your life?
actually, as I got older, of course, I wanted to have more of a okay, let me, that kind of thing. The first one that I really thought I was gonna, mm, the first one that I really thought I was gonna stick with and go with was Hooters. Um, of course, working for Hooters has its perks, or whatnot. But it's like but the thing was, I couldn't get into management. Yeah, here I was, I had served and bartended for a brief moment for like a year and a half, but I'd served for about 8, 9 years, and I'd cooked for equally about the same. And so to be a manager of that and to be able to run an entire restaurant is where I was at. That's where I was in life, and just nobody was really seeing it. Um, and so it forced me to kind of act out and not really show my business side and not really take it seriously and not so that kind of thing. So with Hooters, you only had your back house guys and your front house girls. 90%, 80, 90% of Hooters building is female workers. Um, you know, um, so there's a lot more drama going on, a lot of different things. But I couldn't just put on some shorts and showcase my serving skills. I kind of had to stay in the back. So what they did was they just gave me more money, and they kept shutting me down. And so after 8 years or 7, 8 years of that, I said, "Screw this! I'm tired of this. Like
Yeah.
I am trying to get somewhere, and I'm realizing I'm not getting there. Especially when I've actually moved from 4 different Hooters, or 3 or 4 different ones at this point, and I'm getting the same answers.
Yeah.
I'm getting the same thing. GM, yeah, new one will come in, or I meet a new one, and he's like, "Oh, you show me what you got. In a month we'll see where you're at." And then it's always just here. And nah, I'm not the one to keep having something dangled in front of me, and believing that it's gonna end up in my hands at some point. Especially if it takes too long. I don't mind waiting. I don't mind patience, but I do not like waiting when I can do this better than what I'm seeing right now. I know I could run this better than what you goofballs are doing right now. So and on top of that, I have always had a chivalry kind of feel to me. I've never, yeah. You look at, like, especially nowadays when there's less and less clothes and more in your face, and plastic and fake and whatever, and so it's kind of hard not to just look at Jiggly and whatever's going on. But it's like, that will always be in me. It doesn't matter how old you get. It doesn't matter how mature you are. You're always gonna look up and be like, oh, look at those. You know what I mean? But at the same time, I am still able to talk a girl in her eyes, a woman, and not fret, sweat, or worry because the mountains are just sitting there waiting on me to just take a peek. I'm just like, I'm cool with actually engaging with,
Sure, yeah.
you know, overly sexual ladies with, or sexualized, I guess, ladies, or, whatever they're wearing or whatnot, with respect.
Yeah,
And
that's great.
I've always felt like that. So,
Same.
working somewhere like that restaurant that I was at, I was like, I could run that because I wouldn't let any of those kind of things get in the way of, you know, the way I handle things, you know. And I saw that as a downfall with so many men, especially in that setting. And even when you're at a
In
regular
public,
restaurants too.
dude, when you're in line at the grocery store, you see it all the time. And I'm like I look at these guys and I'm like, I'll see an attractive girl walk by or somebody with some assets walk by, and I'm like, okay, watch this. And I look around, and sure enough, the guy next to me is just gawking, and I'm
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
what the fuck is wrong with you, dude? Like, you're making all of us look so fucking bad. It's not that hard to glance and look away. Like,
Yeah, yeah, you don't need more
what
than a
is?
couple of seconds. It's in your head at that point. You
Yeah,
see it all over at
and
this
they're just sitting
point.
there staring, and I'm like, you're a fucking gross person. Like, that's absolutely disgusting and despicable. You need to stop and go home.
Yeah,
Fucking,
I mean, well,
I hate
sometimes though
it.
the girls give you something to where you just can't look away because you're like, what the hell? Like, how did that fit in there, and how is it even working out? What? So I mean, I
But
get,
even at that, like, you're not gonna sit there and like obviously gawk
yeah,
with everybody around you, all these like decent people just standing there waiting for their grocery checkout, and you're just here staring at some girl's ass. Like, no, nobody does that. Nobody.
yeah. Well, they do, but
Well, they
it's
obviously do, but
and it's funny too when you maybe you look and then you look up and another guy you could tell was a guy looking around to see who else is looking and you both meet eyes
I
and you're
have, I
just
have
like,
no I have no problem with people
yeah,
glancing. Like, that's a normal human response.
yeah,
Even the women, you'll see them glancing. So that's not a big deal. But like, just the gross ass pigs who just sit there and fucking stare, and they don't care that everybody knows that they're staring. Like, that's that's very disrespectful, I feel like.
yeah, absolutely.
But
But
okay, I'm sorry I interrupted you.
no,
You were
you're
talking about your career,
um
the Hooters.
careers, if you will. So yeah, with
Hooters, yeah.
Hooters, that was the longest stint I had. Actually, I think that was the longest job I worked. Um, but after a while, I don't know. I actually, I helped them out. When I was there, the last thing I did was I went and did Masters Week, at in Augusta. With Masters Week in Augusta, it's insane. The entire parking lot becomes a tent, an outdoor tent. There's a whole nother bar out there. They do swimsuit contests out there. They got TVs out there.
What is Masters Week?
Master golf tournament.
Oh, okay,
Masters
okay,
the golf tournament in Augusta, Georgia. So,
okay.
you're talking about $500,000 week,
Yeah.
for just one building. Like, so that building never went away or nothing. But I I always look forward to Masters Week. But I had moved to South Carolina, and they got a new DM, a new GM, and some little bit of new crew. And I said, you know what, uh, I'll help you all out with Masters Week, um, you know, and and uh, and then I'm gonna help out with Myrtle Beach Bike Week, which was down the street from that. Or calendar wise, it was not even a couple weeks difference, or maybe a month difference. It went too far. And then I said, then after that, I'm gonna go down to one day, or no, actually, at this point in my life, I said I'm gonna quit. I said, you got one more month out of me, I think, or something like that. So I did my 60 hours, I think, at Masters Week, and I did 57 in 4 days
Damn.
at Myrtle Beach Bike Week. That was an all day thing, especially since I didn't have dogs to come home to or nothing. I was just at a hotel. I was there at 8 in the morning. I was there till about 1 or something like that every day, and it was but they need it was nonstop. It was just go go go. There were so many bikes outside of that Hooters and Bike Week that I got vertigo multiple times because the entire ground was
Oh shit,
shaking
no
and
kidding.
shivering and vibrating.
That's wild.
Every once in a while a little bit more violent than other times, but I mean it was crazy. How many bikes there were? I just never seen something like that.
That's
But
nuts.
yeah, I saved up enough. I did enough overtime. I went jobless for like 2 months.
Nice.
Like I had 1 month of nothing. I binge watched like I think Game of Thrones was out. A gamed every night. I mean, I loved it. It was living the dream for a brief moment in my life. And then after that, I said, all right, this is what I want to do. I want to go and get what I want. So I said, I'm going to go become a manager where I need to get. And so I started putting my application. I started being methodical about where I'm going with this and what I'm going to do. And then after a while, as time is starting to tick and I'm not getting paid and I'm not bringing in some money, I started to get desperate. So I had this one guy that had worked at Cracker Barrel for 8 years, I think, as a cook. And he worked at Hooters with me. I trained him. He didn't have a good. The GM there was crazy. She was absolutely nuts. She was doing some illegal, weird stuff. But basically, he didn't get a check for like 4 weeks. And so he got mad about that, of course.
Yeah.
So she paid him out of the safe. Um, Next day, put a note, said nobody's allowed in this office because there's money missing out the safe.
Oh my God.
And then he took the money and he left. And then she started threatening him that he needs to pay her back or something. I don't know. And at that point, he just said he cut it off. So I never saw him again. Um, but I knew where he had worked, and so I went to that Cracker Barrel. I'd never been in a Cracker Barrel, and I went in there and I was like, oh, this is interesting. And I got the job. But I think it went down to 9.50 an hour. Here it is, I think 2013,
Damn.
and I'm literally starting at the bottom now. I just left 13 something an hour, 14, something like that, and I'm going down to this. And I told my ambitions to my GM. I want to be manager, that kind of thing. And I worked my way into getting to serving, so I can cook and serve. And after about 9 months, I realized I'm not getting anywhere with these guys. This guy told me, hey, you get me through the holidays, and he basically used to work at Applebee's as like a regional.
Oh,
He's like, I can get you in over there. You don't want to work for the, he was just talking.
I hated Applebee's. I worked
So,
there.
so the management prospect was there, and I'm like, finally, I can finally get somewhere. Because once you hit that level, as long as you're good, and you don't just do stupid stuff.
Right.
You can bounce around
Right.
above water, and you can keep going. But so I was excited, I was ready, and after we got out of the holidays, it didn't come to fruition. And then I asked him, I said, so he was so bad that even I humbled myself and decided, because I didn't want to go work as a manager at a fast food joint. That was like my last resort for restaurant management. I didn't want to do that, but I finally gave in and I said, you know what, I got to get out of here, and I've got to start this the right way. So I decided, and I went with Zaxby's, and I had worked at Zaxby's when I was younger. That's my second job.
What is Zaxby's?
So Zaxby's is like a Cane's Chicken maybe here,
Okay.
or something like that. It's a chicken joint,
All right.
but their food is very good, and it's like bar foods.
Okay.
That kind of thing. Wings, chicken tenders, and fries, But
Sure.
then they got known for salads and
Oh wow.
really good stuff. But so I applied and I actually got the job as a manager there. And I mean, even with the second interview with the DM, I'm just kind of like waiting on because I also learned to not get super excited about something that I don't have until I have it.
Yeah.
There's been so many moments where I'm like, yeah, she's gonna say yes.
Yeah, you're so close, and then everything goes the complete opposite way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I got the job and they ain't called me back. You know what I
Yep.
mean? Waiting on the money to drop and it's less than. Like I don't like to get myself stoked up, psyched up for something that probably is going to be. I don't like to until it is there.
I
Even when I
understand.
sign for the house, everybody's like, "You're not excited." Even when I sign for my car, you're not excited.
No.
No,
No.
until I've got the keys in my hand and I'm
That's
driving.
100%.
Trust me, once I got in my truck and I'm driving, oh yeah, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like I didn't
absolutely.
give a. But so yeah, I finally got the job. So I got with Zaxby's and I went with them or whatever, and I got to management with them. That's where I met my wife, and then I ended up back at Cracker Barrel, and that was just because the GM was running around, and he was like, he came back to Cracker Barrel himself, and he said, hey, I'm gonna be taking over one of these other locations. You want to come back and cook for me? And I said, no. There's no way I'm not going back to I'm not. Like, are you crazy? Like, I'm managing right now. So then we talked a little bit more, and he said, well, how's you do, and blah, blah, blah. And then he's like, you know what, put an application in. So I did, and I actually got and then once again, not excited till I got it. Got the job, went ahead and made the change transition, and now I'm in the restaurant, and this is where I need to be, and this is where the start goes, where I want to go in the right direction, whatever. Not saying that I couldn't stick with Zaxby's and I couldn't keep going, and it wouldn't have been a good, lucrative job or whatnot. It's just not something I wanted to be. That wasn't the setting I wanted to be in. Forever, or whatnot.
Yeah.
So yeah, I went that direction. But yeah, it's I didn't like being told stuff, like even when I was at Cracker Barrel the first time and and I got out that holiday setting and I'm ready for like a real talk, he still was saying nothing. So I got the job at Zaxby's. I think it was like $30K a year or something basic, and so then he's trying to talk me out of it. He's like, so what are they offering you? And I'm like, well, they're offering me, 30K. And he's like, okay, so how much you making right now? I said, 10.50. Like that's the dollar you gave me, and that kind of thing. I was kind of looking at him like, you did this. And he's like, yeah, yeah, I'm not gonna be able to match it. I know. That's why. So
That's why I'm leaving.
yeah. What the hell?
So is I'm sorry, Zaxby's. That's where you met your wife. Then you went back to
Yeah, Cracker Barrel.
Cracker
And now
Barrel.
this is at the towards the end of this last 8 years, I guess. Before that was where all the 48, 50 jobs crammed in. Before I got to the last few of the
So
tour.
you've been a lot more, I guess, long term at these jobs recently.
Yeah, with the latest ones I have been more long term. But it's very funny because like my first job was Publix, the grocery store, or the southeast kind of where they're at, and after a year I actually lost it. I had moved up to cashier. I was 16, 17, I think at the time.
Damn.
Been there with them for a year. I was a bagger when I started. It was 5.15 an hour. I got a raise to
Jeez.
I got a raise to 5.50 or 5.75, I think, and they raised minimum wage to 5.35. So with the or 5.50, I can't remember what they did, but they bumped it up, and so I just gotten my eval, my raise, and not even within a few weeks they had raised up minimum wage. So I asked my store manager, hey, is there any way I can get a little more? And she actually bumped me up to 6.50. So I was like, okay, as a high school student, just part time. That's I can buy those subs that I wanted. I can
Yeah, buddy.
I can hook up that sound system I wanted that I can actually start So, and of course that was my focus. That was what had my attention when I was younger. That was where I was at. Um, but like but I had this bagger come in my line. I had moved up the cashier, and I couldn't wait to be 18 so I can move to other places. I think produce the guy's getting paid 8.64, and I was like, oh geez, that's that's coins right there. It's gold right
Right.
there. Or meat cutter. I think it was like 10 an hour if you became an apprentice and moved up that way. But so I saw these potentially more to do. And even as a cashier though, I took my job seriously. Even as a bagger, I took my job seriously. Everything I've always been 110% whenever I give. The point where I really wanted to join those cashier bagger competitions. Like I was
I didn't know
slide.
that was a real thing.
It was like that movie Employee of the Month.
Yeah, yeah.
That is actually there's some places that was legit. Now I don't
That's
think
pretty
Publix
cool.
does that anymore, but I don't know. I'm not really in customer service front end, but they used to. Um,
Interesting.
and I didn't have anybody to keep up with me. I ain't gonna lie. They normally it'd be two of them, but I had it to where I had all the fruits and veggies memorized. I like the numbers, so it
Oh
was
shit.
like because at the time they didn't have the scanners handhelds. It was just that little asterisk looking, red.
Yeah.
That was it. You had to get it right. There was no. I don't even remember there being a sideways one. I don't really know. I think I had to roll the cans on their side so that the barcode would scan.
Holy
So
shit.
I was one of those guys that was rolling, deet, 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 like I was actually flying. I was moving so quick. I'm not sitting there trying to toot my own horn and brag, but I mean, when you got something to actually talk about that you can brag about, I ain't gonna lie. Because literally, the other people in other lines would start coming to my line. My line would be the biggest one, but it was always moving fastest. So, and then it wasn't, some people would kind of, hey, you calm down, whatever. I'm like, yeah, whatever. But
Don't worry about what I'm doing.
and I had a good memory back then. I had such a good memory. I could memorize a 10 top of people in a restaurant.
Damn, that's rough.
Yeah, I could. I did. And at the time, we had the little eggshell phones. We didn't have like major nothing or whatever. And that's what really drove a lot of my tips sometimes too. Was that kind of thing. Was memorization of people's meals because I would place what they're eating and their order like right in front of them in my head, and that was like. And then I'd kind of like
So it was a
like
visual thing you were memorizing.
yeah, like if you liked your steak medium rare, I did too. Bam, there we go. So that was already eliminated of what kind of I already knew what the cook temp of that was, and I mean like, I
That's
just would kind of
wild.
adhere to whatever these people were. But now have I failed a couple times? Yeah, there's a couple times I went in the back and I forgot to put it in right away, and I'm like, oh shit. I'm like, okay, what does she want? Water, sweet tea? Dang it, I can't remember.
Bro, I can't tell you how many times that when I worked at Applebee's, I'd have a two top, and like I said, by
yeah,
that time I was already burnt out on restaurants. So
yeah,
I'd be like, all right, what do you want? And they'd tell me, and I'd walk over to the computer, and I'd be like, fuck, what the fuck did they say?
yeah.
Damn it! And then I'd just scroll through the menu trying to find out what they said, and I was bad. So that's pretty impressive that you could do a 10 top. That's wild.
That whole thing about meeting new people and seeing new and that's the main driving force between for music and for my jobs. My
Interesting.
jobs because I wanted to know what was going on behind the scenes. Like I went and worked at an ice skating ring just because I didn't really know how to ice skate. I knew that that would get me some free time, but also I want to see what's going on behind the scenes,
Sure.
the Zambito or whatever, and how's it work,
Zamboni.
Yeah, exactly. And then I worked at like the theater. I wanted to know what's behind the scenes. Like, what the hell? What kind of perks you get to
Yep.
watch free movies? That's
Yeah.
living the dream. Didn't realize you'd be watching the same movie for like a good 3 or 4 weeks before a new one
Right.
comes out. So you already had those ones memorized.
Yeah.
But I just always wanted to learn new things.
That's really cool.
Just so that I'd have that knowledge. And I always liked to learn stuff. If I didn't know how to do it, that was when I drove for it. I think like for instance, like with music, that's why I listen to all the genres. That's why I listen to everything. Used to when I was younger, the only genres I listened to was country and gospel. Or religious music. Those were the two I didn't really care for. I didn't really listen to mariachi stuff. That I didn't really just drive myself to go to try to explore that. At the time, rap was becoming prevalent. The hip hop part of it. The 80s, 90s.
Yeah.
That real. For me, um, more artistic, if you will. But either way, it's a different time. But like I after a while though, I started to branch out, and I realized the benefit of just listening to anything and everything whenever I get a chance to was great.
Yeah.
Because it's like you could pull out different beats or different lyrics or different rhythms or different chords or progressions, and just you could just find one little thing out of every piece of music that you listen to, regardless of how stupid or basic it sounds. You might find something out of there, or
Yeah.
it might actually make your brain work into a different way that you come up with something.
That's exactly how
So
producers operate. All
yeah.
these big hip hop producers and whatnot. That's exactly how they operate. They hear just some little catchy note that's in some song from the '60s, and that goes. They build an entire beat around it. That's
Yeah.
freaking wild. You were talking about playing jazz. That's mind blowing to me because jazz, the timing in jazz is so wild. It's not your standard timings. Like you got all these, you got two or three different people in the band playing on two or three different times, and it all comes together and makes sense. But like if you just jump into the middle of a song, you're like, what the fuck am I listening to? This is all over the place. Like my brain doesn't comprehend that. That's wild. Did that take you long to learn, or did it just kind of come
Well,
natural to you?
jazz actually is not too hard. It's you basically got like, and this is basic, okay? This is way basic. I'm just bringing it down to like a base level, but it really is something that's just a stand. But basically, you have a song, and you play through the entire song together, how it's written, and then after that, somebody will jump on the solo part, and basically you play the song again, but now you don't play what's written. You just play what you feel. And then you go with
That's
and the
wild.
things is the chords are basically normally laid out for you. I'm sorry. Normally the chords are laid out for you. What is your progression and where you're going with it? So you just play the right notes on those right chords, and you're playing it safe. Now the real jazz, the real people that have that out there, that crazy, that they're the ones that go way off and over and then under, and they play the notes that don't sound like they're part of it, but they make it part of it,
Yeah.
kind of thing. The beats, the percussive beats behind it. So basically everybody plays. Then yeah, you solo, then you might solo, then you take a slow, then everybody plays that, and then you're out. And then you play the end, and you're done. And
That's nuts.
it's really easy, but it's hard to get into. Um, when I was when I was a senior in high school, I lost my license for a year. Um, I you can tell I do like a lot of rabbit trails. I just got I was at Zaxby's, and we got done, and me and a bunch of the dudes, we all smoked up, and I got really nice and feeling good, and I decided, I was driving home, and I think I was 17 at the time, and I was driving a Jeep Cherokee Sport, and that's basically a boxy Jeep Cherokee, an 80 or 93. um, so I'm driving it, and then this black Camaro just comes up right behind me. Now, I'm driving the scenic route home, and I'm just chilling, and then, so they're right on my ass, and I'm like, what the hell? So I go to the left lane. Nobody else is in front of us or behind us. It's just us two. And they get right behind me again. I said, all right, we're going to play fucking games. So I just stomped. I went to the next lane, and I stomped on the gas, and I went. Now, I'm doing 85, and the needle's just doing that. It's
Oh
just,
fuck.
I don't know what I'm going at this point. It's 85. And I look over, and the Camaro's flying with me. So we're both flying down the things. And then now at this point, I'm starting to freak out. Like, what the hell's going on? And somebody, after a while, the Camaro just stops. And all of a sudden, it's just behind me. And I look, and then I look forward, and way up ahead is a cop.
Fuck.
Soon as I applied the brakes, lights went on.
Ooh.
Soon as I about to get pulled over, I start thinking. pull out a cigarette. I start hotboxing the car. So all the mayor, don't you gonna smell nothing on me but cigarettes. I'm gonna have smoke right in his face when he opens his window. Um, I grabbed, I think I had a joint or two or something, I don't know, and I had an Altoids can box, and I shoved that in here and whatever, and I started getting ready. Um, Pulled me over. Basically, I lost my license, and I had a speeding ticket. I was doing 84 and a 45. Um,
Fuck.
yeah, and so I lost my license. I lost my license at the end of my junior year, going into this summer, going into my senior year. I am finally a senior, finally being able to take out all the younger girls or whatever, and
Yeah.
I can't do shit.
Damn it,
Like,
dude.
yeah, you want to go out? You got a car? So I ended up stuck, if you will, getting rides from this guy that was a huge band geek. He didn't look like one, but he was just loved music, and he played like 5 different instruments, and he listened to jazz every day. I'm trying to listen to some Nelly or some Ludacris or something. And this
Yeah.
guy's playing freaking. And I'm just sitting there like, bro, are you freaking kidding me? So the first like months or two, I was so. I probably was hanging out the window just looking dead. But after a while, it just kind of grows on you. I started to kind of take it in, and then I
Interesting.
started to understand, and then he would explain to me, and then I realized that's not that hard. But it's just, and then you start to hear that's why they did that. That's crazy, and so then when I got into college, and then the formality thing opened up to me. That's when the doors opened up, and I said, dude, I could do some of this because I didn't have that same sense of voice on drums. For me, drums are bing bang boom, and I'm banging stuff, and I'm making it loud. I loved, beats with it, but I didn't have like a sense of real voice.
Hmm.
Watching someone like Eric Hargrove, James Brown's drummer, play, that man could take a basic drum set and make it sound like he had a 20 piece. And you're just like, what the hell? Like he had so many different techniques on one piece of it that just would just blow your mind.
That's
Um,
interesting.
but yeah, it was jazz. It's sad too because nowadays music has become so basic. It's so easy that to the point where nobody can really listen to jazz nowadays and say, "Oh, that sounds good." No, most people are like, turn that off." You know, and it's just sad because it's just you know, it's just become more basic. You know, um,
What did you go to college for, real quick? Was it music?
well, what's funny is I wanted to double major. I wanted to be a forensic scientist,
Oh
and
wow.
but I got this music scholarship. Um, Now it
God,
was
that's
only
impressive.
$300 a semester. It wasn't like I was breaking some bank here. I had the Pell Grant because we were a little poor, so I ended up like with 2,400 per semester, and it dwindled down slowly over the each semester. But like that wasn't like the main bread and butter of me paying for my scholarship or anything. That was just $300. It was called
I mean, any kind of a scholarship's pretty impressive.
that's how I felt. So, but also when I got out of high school, I was gonna play it smart. I didn't want to overburden myself and just take a bunch of classes. I was like, let me take a couple, let me fill it out. So I went to their registration or whatever, and I found out a couple. And I'm like, yeah, let me do some science, math, or whatever. And I asked about double major, and they said, well, we don't have that, but you could just major in and major in the other. I'm like, yeah, that's stupid, but whatever. So then when I got done the first day or when I went to orientation for the musical part or whatever, my director of music or the fine arts was like, yeah, no, this ain't gonna work. And I was like, what you mean? She was like, well, you need this class, and this class, and then you need this class and this one. What? She's like, in order to keep the scholarship. Okay. So then I did that, and realized there's an hour gap between there. There's a 2 hour gap between there. There's an hour
Oh
gap
fuck.
between there. And I said, well, fuck it. If I'm gonna be here all damn day, fill that up with that. Let me do jazz here. I'll do orchestra there. It doesn't matter. I just did all of it. So
Damn.
I ended up going
Went
from I'm just
hard.
gonna be chilling to all of a sudden I had 16 credit hours.
Damn.
And then the girl that I started to fall in love with, and one of the first girls I met with, she was a very hardcore. She was homeschool Christian girl. So like when she went to college, she didn't mind taking a whole bunch. She was actually at like 21 at credit hours.
Holy shit.
She had to be signed off by the dean of students uh, to be able to take that many hours per semester. She had to go every semester and get it signed. So the next one, I mimicked her, and I added another class or two so we could be together. Um, and I think that was the time when I added orchestra or something like that. Stuff that I didn't really care for at the time, but I was like, then I got in and I was like, this is kind of cool, I guess. But so I was at 19 credit hours. Um, and then she was taking summer classes, and I crammed into humanities into a 4 week or 6 week or whatever, which was a
Jesus,
stupid
dude.
idea. But man, it opened up my mind. But I still like ended up with like a C. But I passed. But I was like, that's not. I really want. I was like, maybe I should retake that one later because I really wanted to know what I was listening or look was supposed to be reading, which I really didn't. And then the next semester, which would be my third semester at this point, 22 credit hours. And then my fourth semester was 24 credit hours. So
Jesus,
I mean,
dude.
I don't know. I just kept up in the dang on bar, and then at some point I backed down after that. When grades started to kind of fluctuate, that was when I was like, okay, I can't take too much.
Yeah.
But most of my classes, which was crazy about it, weren't even that many credit hours. there was some that were half a credit.
Damn.
So yeah, that 24 hours, that was still a whole days, Monday through Friday filled up basically, or Monday through Thursday at least. Friday was a little half day, but it was literally from 7 in the morning to about 6 or 7 at night.
Holy
Um,
shit, dude.
you know, and then after that, that's when I went to work, and then after that, that's when I go and depending on the day, I'd go play overnight. That was when I got to practice and I got to learn. I had it to where my drum instructor he didn't really know too much about formality. He was mostly drums. Um, so I took advantage of that because he was trying to get me to play all these basic ones and level fours, and I'm like, nah. I started with a level six piece that I'm not really good at, but I want to get good. But this is where I need to be, so that's the goal. So like I kept. So what I did was I would memorize a new piece of music every week, so that we'd have nothing to talk about with that piece of music. So like at first I play more arpeggios and I play the easy stuff and I play the couple easy ones you want me playing. I was like, oh yeah, I memorized this piece by the way. And he's like, oh really? Oh, let me hear it. So I play it and he'd be like, okay, all right. So how about this? And then we start delving into that piece of music. And then the next week I come and then we'd say, and then I'd play that one. And I was like, I got another one. He's like, another one. I was like, okay. So I was instantly, I just kept like trying to you know. And then ended up I got another drum instructor and he was a younger guy and he was more like, well, and he'd bring me back. He's like, well, that looks good, but we need to stick with this one. I'm like,
Oh,
yeah, so
that sucks.
yeah, but nothing would hold you back though if you don't let it. I'd still memorize pieces. I
That's
still
really
kept
cool.
going. Like I would not let it stop me. At one point, I actually had it where I was starting to work on three mallet. That's it's
So each mallet is playing a note in a chord.
yeah, like each one is hitting where you want it to hit. And with two mallets, it's like a crab legs or lobster claws or whatever. It's you just squeezing in and out, in and out. There's different hand grips, a Musser, Burton grip. I forgot the other grips, but there's a couple other grips. Ways that you put the mallet in between your fingers or outside this finger, or hold it with your thumb. I started to work on a three mallet because
Damn.
I realized the middle mallet was the issue. I needed to just have these two kind of do crab like, and then if I could make a middle one, and that'd be the third one. That so I started, but then by then was my I think it was like my last semester or whatnot with Augusta State. After about 3 years of of going to college, I realized I dropped being a forensic scientist at this point because it was just like it wasn't interesting me anymore. And music, because music just had that calling. Once I hit that marimba, and I heard it's a 10-foot instrument. You know, I mean, I have to. I'm a little guy. Sometimes it looks like I'm bouncing from one side to the other when I'm playing. Um, and even at a 5 octave, you're talking, on a 5.5 octave. I mean, these things can get huge. Like literally from that end to that end is how long it is.
That's awesome.
But and I was playing on a basic like a 4 and a 6 or something. But I, I fell in love with it so much that forensic science that kind of went away. And then I was like more focused on music. And then after a while, I realized they were training me to be a teacher. And I was like, I actually had in my scholarship in performance. That's what I was going for, a performing, arts major, not a teacher. But they were teaching you that because you either make it big in like a philharmonic, or you end up making it big like Justin Bieber or someone. You make it famous. Which is it's kind of not gonna or you learn that you're gonna be a musician that gigs on the side and has to have a stable job as the main bread and butter, and teacher is more than likely what you're going to do as a musician. And so I said, fuck that. I'm not spending. I'm not gonna work anymore towards this piece of paper that tells people that I know what I'm doing when I can just show them. That just didn't make any sense to me. And I did try the teaching thing. I actually taught at two middle schools and a high school. Just more of as a drum instructor once a week to come sit in. Helps with band camp. With another school, and I realized that I don't want to do this because I was at that level when I was in high school. I didn't want to be. I didn't care about the musicality parts of it. I was a drummer. I just want to bang on stuff,
Yeah.
make beats,
Yeah.
I want to sit here and I just didn't. So, me trying to teach these kids, I'm starting to realize I don't want to do this, So that I scrapped that, and then that's when I just went on my journey in a different direction and just said, you know what, I want to do something different again. So I just dropped college and I left. I think I was a junior at the time and I had maybe a year and some change, but it was just not worth it at the time.
I dropped out of college too.
You know.
It is what it is. I oddly enough, and I've talked about this before, but I was going to college for avionics, so I was going to do all the dashboards and airplanes and stuff like that. And back then, I had absolutely zero interest or drive for any kind of aviation related anything. And yeah, then years later, now I'm freaking av geek galore. Like I wish I would have never dropped out, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
Um, I have my little projects in the garage, and that's good enough for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I kind of I've spoken to several like super successful people who, business owners and whatnot who have the same attitude. Like college is bullshit. It's not worth anything. It's kind of what you can do in the real world that makes any kind of difference. It's just you got to find that right person or right situation to give you the opportunity.
Well, I felt like college was another. I mean, you're literally paying for your place higher up above people.
Yeah,
Instead of earning it.
yeah.
In my eyes, and
No, I agree.
it's just an education. It's like, for instance, I was at a Bahama Breeze. When I got the job at Hooters, it was a random thing. I was serving with another server. Me and him were at Chili's, and we went to I Drive in Orlando, Florida, and went on International Drive and just started walking and going to restaurants that looked cool. I got the job at Bahama Breeze, Hooters, and Tommy Bahamas. All three of them like a trifecta, right next to each other, at the same outdoor shopping mall area. But when I was at Bahama Breeze, there was this guy that was maybe about my age, suited up, looked well dressed, all that good stuff. And I overheard his interview because they were kind of close by. And, he basically said he had all these accolades that were amazing. I went to school for this, I took culinary school for that, business management degree, this. But then when I got to the point of what have you done, where have you worked? Uh, well, I worked at a library for this, and I did this at my fine art. And I'm like,
Yeah.
what the fuck? You want to be a server? Like, in my head, I'm like, what the hell are you doing? Like, just say you're just starting over. Like he had nothing to show that he had no experience because he focused all on his education. And then, here I come and say, well, I served here, I served there, I've actually cooked here, I bartended here. You know what? So, it was
That's
that wasn't easy, but that's an entry level position. You know, if you got all that in your back or whatever, you kind of, I knew the hostess.
overqualified.
There's a hostess that really beautiful hostess named Samara. A little older woman. I think she was like 30 in her 30s, so not older, but for me a little older because I was like in my 20s or something. But she had 3 degrees, and she was a hostess here at the Tommy Bahamas, and the whole reason was she was overqualified everywhere she went.
Yeah.
And in my head, I was thinking they just didn't hire you because you looked too good, and they didn't want a distraction. But regardless, it was like it's pretty sad when you see people actually succeed in the college route and they get all the way with that piece of paper or two or three even, and then it's
I
like that Kanye West song. You got all these degrees. What are you gonna do? Like you sleep with them? Like
I don't know a single person that I've met ever who uses their degree in their field.
yeah,
Nobody like we go get these degrees, but it's just like I want to jump start in front of these other people to get the job. That's it. Like it doesn't serve any purpose because nobody gets the job that they like. Okay, that's not true. Maybe like people in oceanography or
yeah.
biosciences and things like that.
Well,
People
the
in
biggest thing with college is it opens you up to the other professionals in that field. It gives you names and friends and
networking,
connections. So that's what you're really paying for.
right? But
You know,
is it
which
worth it though? You're kind of giving up a lot of time that you could be gaining real world experience that is probably going to do you better in the long run.
I don't know. I was in a fraternity. I was in I was living on my own, and I had 2 jobs still, and I was still you know grinding at college.
Okay, and
Uh,
has that fraternity experience done you anything in your life? Like, has it done anything positive for you?
yeah, so with the fraternity, I wasn't planning on going to fraternity. I've never believed in paying for friends, and that's how I saw it. Whenever and that was my first outlook on
That makes
fraternity
sense.
sororities. I didn't even like paying for my education. I don't like paying for my job. Like, why am I paying so I can
Yeah,
get to where I need to be? Why don't you all just we should be helping each other get to where you're interested. Come here, let me show you, and then you learn the trick of the trade, like an old day kind of thing.
yeah.
But so I wasn't, but Augusta State was not that big. It only had, and the Delta Chi chapter, which what I was part of, they didn't have that many brothers. And funnily enough, I knew all of them, except for a few. So it was like when they invited me, I came and I'm like, hey, I know you. You're in my class. Hey, that's my big. And after a while, I was like, well, shoot, just hanging out with my bros. So I started to go. And then after I started to go, and I realized what kind of philanthropic stuff they were doing, what kind of stuff for the community, aside from what kind of partying that was going on, aside from what kind of like connects I was getting and girls and whatever,
Right.
you're a young college guy, a freshman. I mean, this is literally opening up all kinds of doors. And
No, that's cool.
so, and at the time I was getting the Pell Grant and a couple of other, chunks of change. So it was like 500 a semester wasn't that bad. But, it only lasted like 2 years. And after that, I said, I can't pay for this anymore. But it did serve me good. Um,
Well, but down the line, like, did it actually
well, I have
in the long game? Did it do
there was
anything?
there was this time I was drinking, and I've done this many times. But there was this time I was drinking at a friend's house, and I got done, and I was gonna leave, and it was like 3 in the morning, and I got outside in my car, and then I passed out in the car
Oh fuck!
with the car still on,
Oh jeez,
and I
dude.
wake up, and one of my brothers is waking me up, and he's a cop.
Oh fuck!
And then there's this time where I was actually partying at my own house, and I decided I wanted to get something. I can't remember what it was. Another pack of cigarettes, maybe a beer. I don't know. I just wanted to get out of the house and go get something, and my friends would not let me. Nobody would let me at the party. In my own fucking house, in my own car. Nobody's gonna let me drive my ass. Are you fucking kidding me? So they took my keys. So I went and found my spare. I snuck out the back. I got in my Jeep and I started driving. And as soon as I got down the road, I started realizing this wasn't a fucking good idea. Like I am tanked. So I'm like, okay, so I'm getting ready. I'm starting to turn around. I get pulled over.
Oh fuck!
Window rolled down, and I'm just getting yelled at. There is a flashlight in my face. What the fuck is wrong with you? Are you crazy? You not? I mean, going off on me. Come to find out, that was another brother.
Holy
Of
shit,
fraternity.
dude!
Two at this point, two of them were in the force. So I don't know.
No, I mean that sounds
Maybe
cool.
maybe somewhere there it kind of helped me a little bit.
Oh, absolutely. That's
Now,
wild.
there's other stories besides that, but yeah, no, those relationships, man. They and even like going through Hell Week and all that, it was interesting. It was really cool. I got to go to the huge house in Athens, on Greek Row. I could have never done that if I wasn't pledging, if I wasn't part of it, and I was still so cool. It was just so cool. At the time, too, what's crazy is they had this huge projection screen, one of the box projection screens that used to be the big,
Yeah.
theater screen in the front yard, and everybody was watching.
Wow.
Everybody's watching the Georgia. I can't remember Georgia USC game or Georgia Clemson. I can't remember. It was one of the big games. And one of the guys, one of the pledges, walked across and he accidentally unplugged it.
Oh fuck!
Oh yeah, it was what the hell, guys? Everybody's throwing beers at the kid. And me, I had actually one of my brothers had stole my cornerstone, which is just a book that's your cornerstone. You gotta hold on to it. And he stole it. So to get it back, I had this little scavenger hunt list of things I had to do or take pictures of while I was that night when I went to the mansion. Really, that was a big old house. That house had maybe 20 rooms.
Holy shit!
It was awesome, and every room had something different going
Nice.
on. Sometimes it's debauchery, sometimes it was, hey, come and join us. Sometimes it's like, I don't know what's going on there. What are y'all smoking? Real talk though, it was like really cool because it was like it was awesome. Just to be part of a group like that and see how much bigger. It is outside of the smaller four walls that we had at the smaller campus I had. But one of them, I think one of them, I had to take a picture with me booty dancing with the president's girlfriend or something. Yeah, I got all my stuff knocked out, but it was still one of those, man, what the heck? But it was a really fun time, and I never went back. I didn't really get too more involved with the fraternity after a couple years. But there was a lot of good aspects to being part of that group. That coming out of it, I'm glad I did.
That's
It
cool.
was just something that I just ended up doing, and I actually enjoyed.
That's awesome. I want to stop real quick for a second and pose a challenge to the viewers or listeners of this. Let me just preface this with you, out of everybody in this entire family, you are the epitome of Papo. You have all of his mannerisms, like the way you speak, everything. And that's mind blowing because you didn't even grow up around the guy. Like
Yeah.
you are a young version of him. It's a trip. Like I want the viewers and listeners to go back and watch the Papo episode and then come and watch this episode and just see those little subtle mannerisms because it's really cool. It's like talking to a young Papo, but I don't know. Albeit, Papa was a little more shy and reserved on his episode because Nanny got it in his head that it was going to be all over the internet. So he didn't say anything, too out of left field. But
Well, at the end of the day, you're still putting something out there that is literally on the side of a highway that, if it gets picked up, can be transported to thousands and millions of people.
yeah.
So it's not that isn't a possibility for Papo. And
No. And he,
but I understand the way
he's
he
just
was
so shy and
like
reserved
trying to make
in
sure,
that.
I don't say the wrong things or whatever.
Well, and like I try to keep this a conversational format. I look my guests in the eyes and I talk to the guests rather than most of the time spending looking at a camera or whatever. But Papo, I think because of the cameras, he was like just stayed focused on his hands and
Yeah.
Poor guy. I told him we're gonna have to do it again, and I
Well, I
want him
saw
to
that. I saw
loosen up a bit.
that episode, and it's funny is I learned some things about him I didn't know. I didn't know that his nickname was given from Robert. I just didn't know that. I thought that I thought Papa was Grandpa and Nanny was Grandma in
Yeah.
Spanish. For years I've always thought that. I didn't realize those were nicknames.
Yeah, that's too
So
funny.
and then when I tell people, yeah, my nanny, they'd be like, oh, you call your grandma your nanny, and I'm like, yeah,
Wait, you don't?
I thought that was what everybody did the Spanish side.
That's too funny. Um, okay, one more last subject I want to touch on. I know we've already been here a while, but Papo himself has had in the past sort of a drinking, maybe not a problem, but definitely an addiction. And I feel like maybe you have taken that on in your past. We were talking about it a little bit yesterday, but your dad doesn't have that, does he? Or does he have sort of a drinking thing? I've never known your
My
dad to drink at
dad,
all.
he doesn't drink at all. I think I've had a beer once.
Does he have any kind of addictive qualities? Like, is there anything he's addicted to, whether it be like working hard or
He's
movies or?
My dad's too addicted with worrying about the future. To me, he and he's gotten better over the years. But one of the biggest things he always worried about was our future, his future, mom's future, this future, that future, whatever. And some people live too much in the past, and then that can keep you in a depressed state sometimes. Causing your drinking kind of actually just curtails behind that. It just keeps you in that mode. It brings you back to that mode if it wants to, or it lets you get uplifted. But at the end of the day, it's still something that can keep you down. That's why it causes depressant or whatever. You know, in my dad, he's very, being army, he was very, very good about being organized. He's very good about thinking ahead. When it comes to that, I wouldn't say that's that detrimental. I guess it's just,
I don't
I think
know.
if there's anything my dad is really obsessed with, it's just like obsessed with securing the future and thinking about the future all the time. Um, um, but
Well, and
but I don't. But he doesn't have anything that I've seen that I can say
that
is
you
an
could say is an
addiction.
addictive, yeah,
Like for
addiction.
instance, right now I have a kratom drink. That's the third one. You're not supposed to drink more than two. That's my addictive nature. I keep pushing boundaries just to see, which I shouldn't, but I do. When I smoked cigarettes for the first time, that's because I wanted to see. I wanted to challenge myself. You telling me that if I smoke that I'm gonna get addicted after one or two? Get the fuck out of here. There ain't no way. So I bought some, and then I think like 16 years later, I finally was able to quit. But that's because I was coughing up blood. So then I went on to Camel Snus, and that's dried up dip. And I was able to keep that in my in my gums and talk to people and not have any issues. And I was able to tongue away and get some nicotine, and that was good. And then I started bleeding at the gums. So after about 4 or 5 years of that, I tried going back to cigarettes. I had went all the way down to Marlboro Ultralights, and
Oh God.
I was still coughing up blood. And you're talking about like sprays, like spews, not like it's like coming and it's just leaking out of me. It's like I could taste it when I was coughing and my lungs are
Fuck.
burning. So at that point, they came out with vapes. At that point, they just came out with E6, like blues or whatever they were. Um, and then I went to Colombia with one vape pen in my hand and a newly vape shop juice in my other, and came out to Colombia, and they had no vape at all. And I was like, what the hell? So I had to go back to Augusta to get juice and stuff, and it was crazy because I was like, if I had the money, man, I would have jumped in on that, because I was like that. All of a sudden, vape shops just showed up everywhere, all over the place. But addiction.
So your addiction is not just alcohol. It's just not an alcoholic issue. It's everything.
I just get addicted to stuff. Like I
Just
just
stuff.
like I just get like I have an oral fixation. So it's like at some point I was using commit lozenges to quit smoking. And they were good. They did the job. I was smoke and remember I was quitting for girls that didn't smoke if I was in a relationship. So that was in and out intermittently, um, during college or whatnot. And but I found that I was spending the same amount on these commit lozenges because I was literally just sucking them down in my mouth.
Damn.
I'm spending like $300 a month on commits when I'm like, I spend that much or less on cigarettes. What am I doing? So it's like I don't know. It's really weird. I've always been curious about trying things. I've always wanted to know why people do that. What are you talking about? You trip? What is that like? What are you talking about? You high? What is that? You know what I mean? Like what? That kind of thing. Like I just always
That's
wanted to
interesting.
know.
Did that ever lead into any drugs that became problems?
I've done everything but heroin and crack, which is surprising because my brother did, the other stuff. If it was in front of me, I did it. Like legit, it doesn't matter.
I
It wasn't even a challenge thing. There was one time I had taken a hit of X. I was smoking out of a hookah, and I was dipping, and I had a cigarette in my hand.
what the fuck, dude? That's gnarly.
Yeah, I was a little nuts. Like, I had a bad trip on acid when I was younger. When I was 17, I had a 17, I think I had a bad trip on acid. So I had a 10 strip, which was sweet tarts in a row, and each one of them had a hit of acid on them.
Holy shit.
So and then my friend wanted to trip with me. I'd already tripped once. Saw little Nicky and was crying and laughing and dying all at the same time in that theater. But I decided to trip with him. So I took 2 hits. He took 1. We were outside at like a playground outside a church, hanging out, looking at the trees. And after about 2 hours, I'm like, "What the hell, man?" And he's like, "Do you feel anything?" He's like, "No, my back just kind of hurts." Because whenever you do acid, you're like, it makes your brain bleed. Especially when it's like the first or second time, you have to break that cherry.
Oh my
After that, you
God.
kind of get used to it or whatever. But so your back kind of is like clenched, like your neck, like that kind of thing. So I was mad because I wanted to trip. And I had to work at like 8, 9, or 10 the next day at like, at Zaxby's.
Oh my
So
God,
I
dude.
said, screw it. I took the rest of them because I thought I had gotten gypped and I was water blotted. So I took the rest of the strips. I took, essentially I took 9 hits of acid to myself. Um, I don't know what I took though. So we go back to his house. I'm in the living room and he says, "All right, good night." And I'm like, "Cool, whatever." And then I lay down. And as I'm laying there, all of a sudden there's like some scratching at the window. I look up and there's like a tree branch and it's like it's dark but I'm like, there's something fucking outside. What the hell is that? Like, what is that? So this is when it starts kicking in.
Oh, fuck.
So then I go over to his room like, hey Adam, hey. And he's like, "What?" I'm like, "There's some outside." He's like, "Oh, what?" I was like, "There's some outside." He's like, "Go over there, open the door." He's like, "There's a fucking tree. Go back to sleep." So I'm like, ah. So I lay down. At this point now, it's really kicking in. And I lay down, and as I'm laying down, my body feels like it's being uplifted in my laying down pose. Like my whole body's just shooting straight up, and I'm being lifted to the sky. And my body's going, and I'm thinking like, "No, whoa, what the fuck?" Like, yay. So then I keep trying to lay down. It keeps happening. I go to wake him up. He's like, "What the hell?" We go and sit down. Then then after a while, he's trying to calm me down and stuff, and I'm like, I don't know. So he's trying different things. The poor dude, he doesn't really know. He's not been around this kind of stuff. And me, I kind of have, but a little more. So like after a while, he says, "Okay, let's go outside. Let's have a cigarette." So I go outside and then he's like, "Smoke a cigarette, man. You need one." And I was like, at this point, it's been 2 or 3 years that I've been smoking cigarettes, and I told you I did it because of the challenge. I'm not addicted to cigarettes. I just wanted to smoke because I just wanna. So he's like, "Oh yeah, man, you need one." I'm like, I don't need one. I don't need to smoke. I'm good. I don't. He's like, "What the fuck? Never mind, man." So after a while, he was getting very agitated. We've already spent too much of his time. He's trying to sleep, and I am starting to get wired. So he calls our friends that are in their 30s that worked with us as Zaxby's, these 2 roommates, and they um, came over to pick me up. But when he was talking to them, it sounded like Elf was talking to Santa. It sounded like the little guy was talking to the big man. Because in the other room, I can hear him, and he's like, yeah. He's not, I don't know, man. He's not falling for it. He's not, I don't know what's going to. I'm trying. I tried that. Yeah, I didn't think that, but I don't know. He's not going with it. And then in my head, it started to go in my head that I developed in my head that basically I was going to die.
Jesus
I had
Christ,
OD'd.
dude.
I had OD'd, and it was no turning back now. I was going to pass. So, and this was like God. This was like his elves. So basically, like I felt like he was talking to the big man or something. In my head, like he's talking to like, yeah, he's not doing it. I don't know. I've been trying, and I'm thinking like, so then he comes over and I'm hyperventilating. I've done it once or twice, but at this point I'm like, like I can't breathe. I'm having a panic attack, and he's like, "Dude, just calm down, dude. Calm down. Just breathe holy. Just breathe holy." And I'm like, so when I stop, nothing can be heard. Everything's quiet, and I'm like, "Fuck that. No, I'm not dying, dude. What the, because I stopped breathing. And that's what made me calm down and everything was quiet. I said, I'm not stopping my breathing so that I can just go ahead and pass. It was like they were basically telling me, like, it's going to happen, just let it go. That's what the whole uplifting of my body was. I was going and I was trying to fight it, but it doesn't matter. I'm going to be passing tonight. So I said, fuck that. I'm not. And man, he was like, what? So then the guy comes over and his name's Tony, I think. Yeah, I think it was Tony. And he opens the truck, and again, he's like, "You all right?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm good." He's like, "All right, let's get going, man." I was all right. So we're driving, and then it's starting to hit again. I'm like, "Tony, I don't know if I can breathe." Shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up and just sit right there. And then he just keeps driving. And I'm just like, what the hell just happened? Like, so then we get into the house and he's like, go over there and lay down. Just go fucking lay down. Chill out. Just go lay down. So he knows I'm having a bad trip. But he knows how to handle it. Shut up. So then I'm laying there and my chest is hurting again. I'm sorry. See, at this point, I realize what's voluntary and involuntary. My heartbeat's involuntary, but my breathing and my blinking is voluntary. So if you were to sit here right now and when you blink, think one, and then you blink, think two, and you blink, think three, and then you keep on doing it, it's hard to let it go and just move on.
And just go back to normal.
When you're in control of your breath and you're under some sort induced, under some sort of drug or whatever, it's hard to like not let that go. That it's involuntary. I can move on. So I'm the one controlling my breathing. I'm the one controlling my blinking, and it is a lot of work. For a human being when you're trying to do other things to really focus on in, now, out, now, in, now, out. Now. So I hyperventilating again. And he shut me up again. Said, lay the fuck down and go to sleep. So at this point, it's 7 or 8 in the morning.
Oh, my God.
It's already daylight. So I ended up going to work like a couple hours later. It was wearing off, but I was still looking at everybody like, But it was weird because it was like, it made me realize that God is everywhere and he's talking through everything that you see and people that you meet and don't meet. And if you really listen, there's a message. And ever since then, that's how I've seen it.
That's a trip.
Exactly. That's why they call it tripping.
I never did any heavy chemical drugs or crack or heroin myself. Had lots of shroom trips and weed and all that kind of stuff, but I had the fear of addiction, so I avoided it at all costs. And even alcohol. I mean, alcohol never appealed to me the way it does to most people, I guess, or the way that people with addictive personality, like what it does for them, it did not do that for me. It was the complete polar opposite. Like I hated being drunk and out of control.
Well, to answer your question though, that's how my dad was. My dad, he saw what it was like. My mom and my dad both were raised by alcoholic fathers, I guess, if you will. Totally different kind of, as far as being in one's life and not. So my dad strived to be in our life and every event, all the time, recorded everything.
Wow.
He was always there. Um, you know, so that if there was one thing that I would say that my dad was successful in, or tried to be successful in, was being a great father. And you know, even though we've made our mistakes and we've done some stupid shit and or whatnot, at the end of the day, I think he succeeded. Because of that, I want to be in my son's life as much as possible. But I
Sure.
know that I have to work for what I need to attain. It's going to take my time away from him, but it'll be better in the long run. But there is still a side of me that says, I don't want to be that guy that misses out on this. And that's the whole reason I left the restaurant industry. The restaurant industry, I was tired of seeing other managers fighting for that Friday night off just so they could watch their boy play some high school football.
Sure.
And I didn't want to get to that point. And when I started to see that a lot, I said, no, this isn't for me. I have to do something different. So, with Publix, I was at cashier, and the bagger came through my line, and he basically, I let him slide without paying for a bag of beef jerky. We just started hanging out. He's a year older than me. We're both in high school. He's in a different school. We started, I kind of looked up to him, and I got a little pressured into letting him have it for free. And then I got let go. And learning lesson. And I never got I kept trying to go back, but I was always kicked out of the system, and I was like, thanks for your interest, and I didn't realize you could actually get you get it appealed. So here I am, like 2 years later or whatever, 20 years later, and I get it overturned and appealed, and then I get my chance to come back to a Publix. So will this be where I end up? I don't know, but if you look at it and do the math, I've done a full circle through all these other industries, and I'm back where I started. And I did not leave on my own accord the first time. I had a lot that I wanted to do.
Unfinished business.
So now that I'm back, I'm going to finish what I started.
Okay, cool. I like that. Well, it sounds like that might be another addiction, but a good one.
Yeah, working is definitely an addiction.
Working and then your kid, there's another good addiction that you're striving for. So that's good. We'll take it as a challenge and keep me updated on that.
Definitely.
That's crazy because we just talked for an hour and a half, and there's a lot more that I wanted to talk about and ask you, but I know, I got to be respectful of your time and all that. So I will request that in the future we do this maybe over the phone or something again.
Yeah, definitely.
Have a round two, because
Well, I have a
it's good
my
conversation.
computer is kind of set up at the house, so I actually have it to where I could be able to do something like that. Nothing any fancy, nothing like that, but as far as just being able to record some audio over a
Yeah,
line or whatnot, yeah, definitely. Yeah,
I just
definitely.
generally do a video call, and whatever you have. If you don't have anything, that's fine. Just as long as you can,
Oh, I
as long
barely
as I can hear
scraped
you.
the surface, to be honest. Like I was saying, I wasn't lying when I have lots of stories.
Love it. And
But
while
that's
it's
the
and
reason I've always liked to go out. I've never liked to be just.
that's why I wanted to have Papo on, because, dude, every time we'd be having dinner, that guy had 200 new stories that I never heard,
I will tell you, the older a person is, they might not be more knowledgeable or more smarter, but the thing is, they have more stories.
bro, Papo's sharp as a tack. That
Yeah,
guy,
I'm
like,
not saying that. I'm just saying though that it's like the stories.
no, I know,
Regardless of if they were like
the,
a hair, they were just in the house all the time. There's always they've so many years that
and
they have something.
but on that sharp as a tack note, like, his stories are so fucking detailed.
Yeah.
He'll give you times and dates and people's names, and I'm like, bro, I don't even remember my name half the time. That's how.
Well, that the art of storytelling has died. It really has, because it's nobody has the patience for it. And now podcasts coming out and whatnot, it's a little different. That's like you actually sit down and listen to people talk or whatnot.
Yeah.
And I never really cared for it too much, but I started getting into it a little bit and I understood kind of the concept behind it. And basically, it's a conversation.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I do that every day.
Yeah.
And I try to sit down with people and I listen.
That's great.
And
I love it.
I mean, the whole "you have two ears and one mouth for a reason" is there for a reason. Listen twice as much as you speak, and you will become more knowledgeable. You become smarter. You just got to listen. And it's something hard for a lot of people to do.
Everybody's waiting for their turn to talk.
Yeah, and that's another thing when you're holding a conversation. If you find that you're like the moment of silence and you find that awkward, that's not good. It's like that's a time to cherish the moment, connection, and marinate on what we just talked about.
That's super interesting. Love it. Well, this was all great conversation, and I really appreciate you. I know this was a last moment thing, but
Yeah, I'm glad I got to
it's
come.
super awesome that you came and did this.
Definitely.
This is a great episode, and I'm super psyched to put this out. So, um, I'll be in touch soon, and we'll get a part two of this going, because I want to hear more stories, and I want to ask some vulnerable questions, and get deep into conversation again. This is great.
Cool.
So thank you again for being here. Thank you all for joining us, watching another episode of Ordinary Joe's Extraordinary Stories, and we will see you on the next one. Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.